Going live. Here we go. Hey, everybody. It's David here at NAMTA 2022. And I decided to do a little live demonstration here for you. If you look over there, I can't see anything, can you? So we're going to do black paper. We're going to be doing a little bit of Holbein gouache and the Holbein watercolors. So we can get right into that. And I hope you can hear me. I think you can hear me. And this is just, I figure, I'm here and there's somebody in front right at the moment asking questions. But if you guys want to ask questions about Holbein, what I'm going to use is there's a palette, this is a disposable palette, which I put this thing, it's right, the booth right behind me. They're called, what are they called? They're called Toss palettes. You can see it's a made pressed recycled paper. And you can put I put my gouache in it. I would think it'd be better for acrylics since you can just toss them, recycled material. But here I'm putting my gouache in there. And so I'm going to do this white or this black paper, which is Stonehenge Aqua Black paper. And so we're going to use that. And we're going to add white of the watercolor and white of the gouache. And to show you the difference between how thick some of the gouache can be and so how thin some of it can be. And how transparent you can make things. So what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to take and wet the background. I'm not going to do smoke right away. Look at the picture. Here's the picture I have. I'm going to be doing this picture. And so that's what we're going to be painting. Now we're not going to take and work it black and white. We're going to make some color in there. Again, I'm just going to put this underneath there. And so, oh boy, this is going to really reflect. I'm going to think about that. Oh boy. You see, you might have to position that upwards here. There we go, boy. That's going to be pretty high. I'm going to put the water container right up there, and still going to kind of reflect it a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to wet it here. All right, put a little bit of, with the black paper, you still will wet first to get your soft edges. So we're just going to go in here and put a little blue, let it drip around and bleed. So NAMTA is not for artists. It's basically a trade show for the art stores to buy all the manufacturers' new products that they have. So I go in here, blue. Let me just straighten this out here a little bit. Let's take a blue in here and just what I'm doing is I'm doing the background, and the background in the picture is basically just black, but I'm going to add a little bit of reverse, put stuff behind it. Let me just picture this so I can see what I'm painting. There we go. And let's do the smoke right away too. I'm just going to wet this back up here. Again, anytime you want to get a soft edge with watercolor or gouache, and you're using it wet in the wet, that's how you get your soft edges. You don't need to, there we go, non-reflective, there we go. So I'm going to take white for the smoke. I'm just going to let it drip in here. I'm just going to let it nice and thick. I already have the water down, so I don't have to use any water in my brush. I can just put it right into the water. Let it spill through there. See how nice the effects it's getting? I hadn't thought about the reflection of the light. There we go. We're going to go a little bit of this. Right. It says my stream quality may be affected a little bit, but we'll take a look at that later on. So here I'm going to use it like this, and I'm going to go around and just make the smoke come right up here. Later on, I will do this is all the soft edges, and I'll go back in there. You have to tend to put a lot of paint when you're working wet into wet. So I was actually trying to pull stuff away from there, but this will be, you'll see later on, a lot of this is going to go away. It dries almost more than 20% darker when it dries because whatever pigment's left on top of the black, and the black will show through because this is transparent. Even though this is opaque titanium white, it's going to be, I have to go in later with like thicker, really, almost really thick white. Just going to put a little bit more paint here for his shoulder. Now the back on this side, I'm going to take a little bit of blue just to show this side of his body. There's a little bit negative painting here. Take a little bit of this light blue. Just kind of wet it down again to get it to go nice and soft edged. Boy, look at that. Lots and lots of reflecting light here. Something I didn't think about when I did before we wet this. But see how the smoke already looks pretty smoke-like, right? Now we're gonna get the color. We always work the big areas, so all the big areas first. So let's give him a jacket. And if it's a black jacket, I can still put like white, like a gray. For the flesh, I will use flesh tones. And for that, I'll use like an orange, pink. So how do you make a pink and orange? You put white in it. Let me just put that down for a second and clean out my palette a little bit to get an area where it's a little bit lighter, so I can mix a nice color for the flesh tones. And so what I'm going to do here now is try to follow. I probably should wait a little bit until he is dry. Right? Well, here, this area right here, I can go to this area because it's the hand. I can come in here and do the hand. And what I used to sketch this out was a charcoal pencil, white charcoal pencil made by General Pencil. General Pencils makes a pastel pencil basically that you can use. You can use it for watercolor because when you put it down, it will erase with water. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm using a number 16 brush here. I'm just laying in big parts right now. Big parts. I'm just going to put this in here real light. And because I'm just basically your darks are already there, so you kind of with black paper work dark to light. And so I'm just putting in the big lights now that are not my lightest lights, but they're going to be because basically the background is dark, and so I'm getting lighter and lighter as I go along. Let's see, we have a little bit of the thumb right here, finger. Now his head. And again, I'm putting this on pretty thick, not like not totally like a gouache yet. I'm still using more water. When you use the gouache, you got to realize that it's going to cover up, be very opaque. That's what gouache is. It's a very opaque paint. So that you only use that when you want to really cover up a lot of the paper. And watercolor, the titanium white is also opaque, so of course that's going to cover up a lot of also. Even though it's watercolor, it's probably pretty much close to the same thing when you come to down to it, because watercolor that has white in it, it's the same that the gouache would have. So here I'm going down and inside of his face. Now also, now that it's wet, I can put white in there and then blend the white while it's wet. And if I wanted to stay, I'm going to use the gouache. So the gouache is a little bit thicker. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit more opaque, has a little bit more, it doesn't have any white agent in it. That's one thing that, that Holbein watercolors or gouache does not have whiting agent in it like the old pastels used to have, or the gouache used to have kind of a lot of whites in it. Well, this doesn't, they don't have that. It's all just color. Of course, if you're using white, of course, you're putting it in there. So it makes sense that if you're using white inside the color, it's definitely going to have white in this. So they're just going to bring this down, down here in his cheek. And you notice, like, I'm gonna put a little more red in the cheeks. You always put more yellows in the forehead, more rosy cheeks, more of red. And I'm not sure if you can see that on your screen, but it's a little bit rosier in the cheeks. Let me go right down to the nose. And it's very, since I'm working pretty loosely here, we're not going to get really, really tight with it. Not until the details. And even then, I may leave it just the way it is. I'm not going to go in there and try to get it to look so photographic. I'm just going to go in there and just get the look of the smoke. That's really cool. I mean, this thing is all about the darks and the smoke that's coming through here. So I'm just going to worry about that more than anything else. We're going to put a little bit on the ear. Again, a little bit more warmth in the center of the face. So the nose maybe a little bit more red. On the side here, we're going to take a little bit darker red. And what I'll have to do is make it a little bit more wet, and it will, once it dries, it's the amount of paper left. And up here, a little bit of the hair, top of the hair, the ear. Then we got the lips. He's looking pretty. I mean, he's looking pretty scary right now. So, and also, if you cover a place that you end up finding out that you messed up some of the black, well, just put black back into it. Don't have to, like, rub it. Just take black paint, some black paint right here, and I'll just put it right back in there, and then manipulate the lights that you have in there because you don't have to rub out to get back to the black. So you can, but it's nice just to be able to use black and just kind of go back in and work your image so that the drawing looks good. And as I paint, I also look at my screen so I can see what it's kind of look like from a distance. Because the smaller you look at it, because I have my laptop right here, you can kind of see what's happening with your. So here we got the smoke. I only have the smoke later on too, going in there. Actually, while it's still a little damp, I'm gonna put a little bit of smoke right here, just a little bit right off the cigarette here. And even though it's not like that in the picture, I'm thinking this smoke is coming out of his nose actually, and I think I'm going to do it more out of coming from the. Well, I guess it wouldn't come from the cigarette, would it? Oh well, we'll just make it that. He's blowing at a cigarette. All right, boy. Just so you forgot, it would be coming out of his nose, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay, we'll just go from that point on. And here we go a little bit this way. That's pretty funny. All right, so now let's go into the shirt and the big area here. So the shirt is probably white. So we take a little white here. I'm not sure how much you can hear around because there's many people here at the convention. It's again NAMTA is a convention for art materials. So there's every artist material you can possibly think of here, and everywhere from Holbein to Legion to possibly Pebio. We have Pentel next to us. We have David Smith, Golden. We're all here. They're all here trying to sell their product to like the art stores and a lot of new products. And I'm going to be putting out a newsletter with all the new products they have out here. So they had gotten quite a few new products, and a lot of these companies always have some kind of little new thing. One of the things I found very interesting is the wax, putting wax on a watercolor for later on, where you can instead of putting varnish over it or putting glass over it, you use wax, and then it protects it, and you don't have to use glass on your framing. So now we're going to do the bottom of his lip here, right underneath there. We put his lip a little bit, and I don't see and some of the reflections are showing, so it looks kind of weird, but underneath his nose a bit. Now we're gonna get it really white. We're gonna put a punch of a really nicely light in there so that it shows where my lightest light is gonna be. And it's gonna be basically the smoke and this would be the most color, but on his sleeve here we got the white shirt. So let's put that in there real quick. we go. And then maybe the top of his shoulder here. I'm going to start with a little bit of white. I know that he's probably got a dark suit on, but because it's a little bit shiny, it will reflect. And since the light is so bright there, it tends to make the dark black jacket look light. So we're just going to go in here. Doing this side too, even though in my sketch it's not like that. But we can do whatever we want. And I know the shoulder's not quite far out enough, though. We're going to go a little bit farther. And it's not like that in the photo, but hey, you can do whatever you want to make the picture look better than what it actually is. Yeah, the bottom of his shirt here shows up a little bit. And I kind of want to give it a color, so maybe I'm going to give it a little warmth to it. I'm going to put a little bit, maybe it has a, I'm going to go totally opposite. I'm going to go with a red. I know it's kind of weird, but maybe the lighting making it red looking. So I'm putting a little red in here, only because black and red look kind of good together. And it doesn't even mean that he has a red suit on. It just means that maybe there's a lighting of the jacket. There's some warmth, and maybe you have to put it in the sky also. And see if anybody's actually watching. All right, a couple people watching. There we go. All right, so now we're gonna go in here. I'm gonna put a little bit of this since I put the red into the suit. I'm gonna put it up here a little bit, so I have a little bit of that into the background. And since I spattered a little bit of paint in there, anyways, it's a good way of cleaning up my paper here. I'll put a little bit thicker in the corner, going down to really dark color. I'm gonna go to a purple, a little bit of black. So I want to get a little bit of black back in here. Maybe go into the smoke a little bit. Put it on the other side of the smoke. And I probably should use a little bit of gouache to show you that it's thicker. And you can probably see how much it's a little bit thicker. And so it will cover up more of the black paper and it will stay a little bit more red if I'm using the gouache. It just tends to have a little bit more opaque pigment into it. Down here, bring it down. And since I did use red there, I might as well put it into the forehead too because it's going to reflect once the background's red now. So we have to then.
Oh, look at this. I love it.
The toss palette, we're using the toss palette here.
Excellent.
It held up okay? Yeah, it held up really good.
Oh,
And actually, I'm live right now, and I was telling them that the um the toss palette, it's called the toss palette, right?
Yeah.
It's totally recyclable, right? All right, well, it comes from recyclable materials.
Yeah. Yep.
And I said I would normally use it for acrylics because my acrylics dry out, so I just throw them away. And this is gouache, but I've been headed now for 3 days here, and it's been fine. It's been great, and
I use acrylics, not just for plastic, right?
yeah,
And then I can use it on the screen. I use it for oils. You can use it for wine. It leaches a little bit, but you know what? It seals settled because
uh-huh.
of the oil. And then I used it for a class. And then at the end, I just threw it away so I didn't have to work around all night too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because we got those big giant tubes there. So quick.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That was the toss people, the toss pallets I was talking to you about. It's this one right here that they just came by the table, and this is basically recyclable materials that you can toss it after you're done. It's just a cheap pallet, and you can get them in packets of like 12, or I think it's like different pallet packets. It's called a toss pallet, and that's one of the new products they have here at the show. So look at this nice red coming through here. Now let's use a little bit more of the use a little bit more of the gouache here. Because the gouache again, like I said, the gouache has a little bit more pigment in it, or it's actually a little bit more pigment and it's more opaque. So to make it more opaque, what they do is they put more pigment, fine brown pigment. So it's really good for even to use as like a watercolor, which like you've seen, I've been using watercolor and I've been using the gouache. So it's pretty cool that you can use both of those together. I'm just gonna, and again, if you're a transparent watercolors, yes, you don't want to probably do that where you're putting it thick on there. But I kind of tend to like putting a lot of this thickness in there. It's just where, to me, it's like whatever the painting turns out like. That's what I'm interested in. I want to see it look really cool, and so if it looks pretty cool, if I'm using it thick, then so be it. I'm gonna put it on thick, almost like an oil or an acrylic. I will put it on that thick, and that. But you should do that with the gouache and not with watercolor. So there you see, I'm just putting it on pretty thick at some spots. Down here, I can make it more gray. And so the gray I'll make with a black and white. That's one way of making gray. They also sell grays, different types of gray. But you would start out like a lot of people think, well, you have to buy the gray. No, you just take black and white. And then if you want to make the gray a little bit more into the warm or cool, then you add the little warm colors and the cool colors to the gray. So down here, I'm just going to go with a gray. So this is like a violety gray. Going to kind of bring it in here. Just going to put in a little bit of gray, and it's gonna really darken up a lot once I put water on it, and I don't really have that much pigment in it, and you'll see it's gonna gray down and get it back to the black of the paper. Right now, what you're seeing is a lot of the reflection from the water being wet and not dry yet, and so you're gonna see. I'm gonna use a little bit of the white gouache again because again, it's more pigmented, and so you have a lot of pigment in there. And so you can put it so thick that you can't see through, meaning opaque, right? That's what opaque watercolor is. This gouache. So there. I'm putting now little hits of white, like glistening here and there. And maybe behind here maybe. On the side here. Now I'm getting kind of creative with just this is like detailed stuff. All depends on how far you want to go with your painting. Do you want to make it look really abstractish, or do you want to make it look really totally realistic? And now I noticed that this got really kind of gray, and since I put red in there, I'm gonna make the flesh tone a little bit more warm. I'm going right over it with more wash now with the white. Make the cheeks a little bit more rosy, a little bit more red. So there we go. But otherwise, it's gonna start looking really dark, like there's mud on his face. It looks really dirty. And so we're gonna kind of lighten him up a little bit here, or brighten him up. Now that's wet, so it looks like it's shiny, but it's not. It's just that I wet it right there. Now I'm gonna go into my small brush. And the small brush, we're gonna go in and start getting details. Send this sort of sideways here a little bit. And so I'm using my small rectangular quarter-inch brush. And take some red with white, and we'll make a pink. I'm gonna use a little bit of gouache this time. So again, I want it to be a little bit thicker. And just getting in there and getting some character lines in here. When you use transparent on the black, it pulls up the black of the paper through, right? So you don't get it really bright because it's going back to about 20% darker, as does white paper with how light it gets. It gets darker because, or it gets lighter because your paint gets lighter because you don't have much pigment, and so the transparency of the paper of the paint shows the white coming through the paper. Well, here it does the black. So you really have to use a lot of the opaques to make it look coming through there. Eyes there. Now we'll get his hands going here. And then we're almost finished to where I'm just going to leave it at a certain point where I want it just to look like it's not so detailed. Be a little bit of this lip mark here. See? And again, if there's something that's very black and if you went over with a light, then what you want to do is you go back with your black. There's my black right here. So I go back with the dark color. And if you want to make it a black that has a little bit of color in it, you can do that too. I'm just going to go in there with solid black, get back my, get back some of my look of the black that I went over, and I didn't want to do that, but right here too, his nose is really high here. All right, let's get a little bit of his hair. It's like his hair in the picture has a little bit of brightness on top of it. All right, let's go with a little bit of white and red for the front of the nose. There you go, nose.
Is that Obama?
No, just some black man smoking.
I see now. I see.
Yep, smoke a cigar, and I love the ray
Yeah. The effect of the smoke.
of the smoke. Yeah, so I was going to try to get that effect in there. In here.
Oh, that's
Yeah. Mm.
oh, that's a good salt. See, I like the cafe. Yeah. Cafe cigar. When I went to Paris, that's what I brought back. And from the little vendors in the market that's in there and paint.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yep. But that's a
Yep. It's probably the best present you can get.
yep, something useful.
Yep.
To me, this is Italian.
Yeah, that's probably immediately down there. Thanks. All right, I think.
I wish I could. That's my mom. She does that. I don't know.
Uh-huh. All right. Big brush here. Trim this down. I guess in the picture it was not a black man, but ended up being one. So it's better that way. Sometimes you just take what you get. All right. What else should I put on there? Other than maybe not a smoke. Now with details. Got the red. Get the red in there. I'm broadcasting it live on Facebook. That's why you're talking. So then we're going to put a little bit of the red here to make it again the sky. Actually, some of the smoke probably should be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the sky or the background. I'm just going to take this sprayer. This is a mister. You just mist it and you put a little mist on there. And then you're going to take, now wet it nice and evenly when you're using one of those misters. And then what I'm going to do is put a little bit of red before I put hard edge, the hard edge whites in there. So let that dry. But now I'm just going to put some of that red, and which will of course turn to pink. And then I will go in there later when it dries and put in the hard edge whites. But this will be like a little smoke here. That's a little bit. This time I'll make it come out of his nose. All right, so let's let that dry real quick. And as it dries, let's go in with some details, like the really light lights. I'm going to use the gouache for that. I'm going to use the heavy body or not heavy body, but the gouache that has a lot more pigment in it. It's made for being opaque, so it's good to use the gouache for that. And actually, let me put some more out here. Whoopsie. And white. No, there it is. So the white gouache is not that much different from the watercolor. In fact, so it has some of the additives of gouache that watercolor doesn't have. What those additives are, I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna have to ask them one day. So I'm gonna take a nice thick white gouache, and it'll be very opaque. That's what it is. Opaque watercolor. I'm just gonna hit parts of it with a really thick amount of paint, almost like an acrylic or oil. I'm gonna put it that thick. Bring it top. See, side a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do here is get some of the smoke, and let me just put this down here so you guys can see this. Sorry about the reflections again, but something can't really do anything about because it's not like the most advanced setup here that I have. I just thought I'd do a little bit of this showing you guys while I'm at the thing. 'Cause there's not as many people today as there was the rest of the week, so I had a little bit of time figuring you guys can watch this too. See, I can blend things together by just putting water down, getting rid of certain things. Now I just notice it's a little bit too light. And let me get some more black. So I'm going to take the black here. I'm taking the gouache black because it'll really cover well. I'm going to go back in here and get some of the dark speck. And see how the black covers really, really well. I mean, again, gouache is a opaque watercolor. So if you want to make things opaque, you tend to then want to just use a lot of the paint. Hey,
So awesome.
thanks. Thanks.
Are you on Instagram too?
Yeah. Actually, I'm right on YouTube, and I'm actually doing this live on YouTube right now. Hello, everybody. What are you with? Who are you with?
Today I'm with nobody.
Nobody. Today with nobody.
Artist.
Doing everything.
This weekend demo report for
Oh, okay. For which company?
Pole Art.
Polar. What do they have?
They are the ones who do liquid text.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But it's so cool to see all the artists I work for.
Yeah.
Well, like artists meet corporate, and
Yep. Yep. We learn. I was just telling these guys on YouTube that it's not for the artists, but it is. It's for the art stores. But these products are all going to be in your store pretty soon, and so I was just telling a bunch of the products
yeah.
that are coming out here. It's kind of cool. It's almost too bad they don't let the artists in here because there's so many new things like the average artist.
I got some cool resin and stuff I'm gonna practice with.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you okay if I film you painting a little
Yeah,
bit?
no, that's fine. Not a problem. I'm actually waiting right now for it to dry a little bit so I can put my smoke in there, the hardest smoke.
Oh,
Where's my rigger brush? There is my rigger brush.
oh yeah, these cups are so awesome. I'll have to give me one.
Yeah, the pucks. Here, guys, this is a puck. It's a water container that you can take apart and put in a dishwasher. And it's a container, but you also put your brushes in there like this on the side. You just leave them in there like that. See that, guys? So that's called a puck. What is it called? Let's see. See it up. All right, so then let this dry here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for stopping by. So, what else we gotta do on here? We gotta put a little bit more red in there. It's almost kind of weird that he has white, light skin. It should be red because everything's red on there. Hmm. It looks different on a camera than it does look realistic. It's one of those things that always looks different when you're looking at a camera compared to, or the screen compared to the original. Let's see if I can make this more blurry. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to soften some of the edges because there's too many hard edges on this, and I want it to be more. So I'm going to take water. I'm going to show you how you can just soften edges. You take it and take water here. It's going to kind of get rid of some of the edges and just let them bleed on their own.
It's really turned to light.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. All right, there you go. Up here, put it in there. I just felt that there's too many hard edges. So here we're going to go up this way. I like the look of things being, going to a distance and just bleeding out. And so not everything is identified, it's like a mystery. It's like thin and thinned out. There we go. Nice and thick. And also soft edges are really what will make it look cool, like it's like mysterious, mystique, you know. So we got a lot of snow here, and that okay, that was a little bit better. Sometimes when you get too detailed, it takes away from the mood. So you don't want to get sometimes so hard edged, and you don't want to make it look like a photograph. It's not a photograph; it's a painting. So the only thing I want to do now is I will wait till it's dry, and we will put in our hard edge smoke. And I'll be done with that. And where is my rigger? Yeah, I guess. Oh, okay, never mind. Oh, all right. John found my rigger. Thanks, John. John is from Holbein. He's one of the Holbein employees. So now I'm going to just take my rigger and I'm going to go in here and let's see if we can find, and I'm just going to make these little lines of smoke and I'll mix them together with, let's see, I'm just going to take my rigger and just let it blend on its own. Take pure white. I'm taking the gouache and not the watercolor because it'll just cover better. That's why it's opaque. It's going to bring it down. Do little swirlies here. I'm going to do the top of the cigarette because now he's smoking his fingers. And I get a little bit of the top of the cigarette so we can actually see that he's smoking something. I'm going to put a little highlight here. There we go. And a little more white. And then I may show you how to use an airbrush. Put a little highlights like in the background to make it look very soft on the edges. I get the hard edges first because it is important to get hard edges. Actually, he's got, boy, there's smoke everywhere, isn't there? A lot of times, a good thing to do a lot of times is if you're doing like things like smoking, you ever done smoke before? Not physically, but I mean with the painting. What you want to do is take a sheet of paper and just practice how to do that. I've not done smoke like this before, so I probably should have done it on a scrap sheet of paper to kind of see how what's the best way of using the pigment, and do I use some black in there? Do I go back in with white? Do I use an airbrush? Do I use brushes, regular brush? So I'm noticing since this is really a little dark in here. Hey,
That's that's awesome.
a little dark in there. All right, let me show you another product, which they don't make this as an art product or as for artists. I use this I use this airbrush, which is not from Iwata or from Shade or there's a couple companies here that make airbrushes, and even Holbein makes airbrushes. But this is an airbrush on top of a small compressor, and you can just use it here. And so what I'm going to do is I can take white ink. Holbein makes acrylic ink. Oh, I just spilled it all over it. Holy smokes, it's open. I'm just going to pour it in here a little bit, pour it into there a little bit. So you put just a little bit, and of course it dribbled right on my paper, right? Okay. It is acrylic, so when this dries, it will be permanent. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. There's a little button here on the side. I'm going to turn it on. And then what I'm going to do is so I wanted to have like a little bit of a mist or like a mist. I'm just going to spray it. So see, I'm just going to spray a little bit of the. You see that? So I also can put a light in the background. I can just put like maybe a little light right there. See that? Just a little lights like it's at a concert or a little bit of lights. Or if you want to make the whole thing light, I think I'm gonna put a little bit of the smoke coming through here because this is kind of a soft edge that you cannot get with watercolor that soft. It's like that look of an airbrush. And if you don't like that, you can always take it out with black, put black over it, and this is just things you could do with. Again, this is a airbrush that they actually don't make here, but I was talking to them and said, please make one of these. And so this is a great place to come. The manufacturers are all here, so I was asking them, why don't you make something like this for artists that have the compressor all in one? All right, so then and that's going to be about it. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing here at NAMTA 2022. And until next Thursday, I do a paint along every Thursday. So come back to my YouTube channel on Thursday, and we'll be painting together at a paint along, or you can just watch it, and it's always saved as this will be. And we'll see you then.